So I'm going to start with a short critique of the term artistic research. It's a little plug for my practical musicology book, but I'm going to talk about practice research as a term, which for me it allows a distinction between artistic research, pragmatic research, and activist research, which are about the goals in the research. So the key element of practice research is that the research aims, the value and the quality criteria by which the research results are judged, a part of the research question and are emergent from the process. That for me is one of the key identifying features of practice research, that establishing what constitutes a good result is part of the research process as opposed to being set in advance. And that idea of doing music better, of what better is at any given moment in time and any given context, is part of the research question. So some features will be artistic, so in terms of being new and standing out from other work, and some will be pragmatic in terms of fitting in and meeting genre-based or even personal idiolect-based expectations, and some may be activist, for example, community building or therapeutic aims, some non-musical or ideological aims. In practice research, the development of these aims is part of the research process and will be specific to the case study, to the specific example of the practice being researched. If the process of research is about producing shareable and transferable knowledge, then the individual case study nature of practice research will become more effective as we build a corpus of case studies which have certain features in common and certain differences. I think it's true that all musical traditions and practices have enough differences and commonalities to make comparative musicology fruitful, and that's bound to be true of practice research in jazz and popular music styles. I'm going to identify 4 types of new knowledge that I think emerge out of artistic research and practice research. The first being the relationship between problem solving and technical skill, the idea that we can come at something top down from a problem solving perspective, or that we can use our existing skills and techniques from a bottom-up perspective, and there's always a trade-off between those two things, and that I think is one of the forms of new knowledge. The second is the relationship between methods and the development and emergence of quality judgments. The third is the complex aesthetic arrangement relationship between the expected and the unexpected. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of work on that in the past, but I think there's a lot more to do in that area. And the fourth is the mechanism for creating metaphors relating music theory to artistic, pragmatic, and activist practice. So just want to end with what popular music can bring to the table of this discussion. And I think there's a unique focus on authenticity and identity construction, even within practice research, that there's a very big difference between textual variation, the variation of the music within a tightly defined context, and textual homogeneity in variable contexts. I think popular music does both of those things. There's an intense engagement with a small audience versus a less intense engagement with a larger audience, and there's a whole continuum between those two areas. And I think examining how people think about this as part of their practice is an interesting thing that popular music focuses more on than jazz studies. And funding models and the way they shape aesthetics. There's a lot of work within popular music studies and a lot of practitioners who are exploring that through their practice. And then also different types of virtuosity and expertise. I've written about what I would call a tripartite form of engagement of automatic, subconscious, and conscious forms of kind of inductive and deductive processes. But also, as I mentioned before, convergent and divergent, things that are part of a mainstream or part of a tradition or an established set of rules, and ways that people move away from that. Finally, as far as technology and AI is concerned, we do need to consider what technology can bring to research as well as what it can bring to music. It's being used extensively. And currently AI in the form of machine learning, it's a very sort of sophisticated form of statistical analysis. And I think that the next phase is going to be about divergence from statistical norms of behavior rather than learning what those norms are, and about looking at the outliers and enabling new forms of experimentation, both within research methods and within the research itself.